Hey all, Boardgamerants here, where you'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. Barrage. Playing it solo. This is a solo perspective on it. Let's talk a little bit about the game, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking about it on the other side. So here we have the game Barrage. Here's the main board. I mean, this is what you really got to understand to be able to play the game in any capacity. You need to understand that up above here, these little head streams, there's going to be water, these little water droplets that are going to be up there, and they're going to continue on down here. Down there, there are 4 different little streams that they've got, and they're going to get caught behind dams. And the dams, if they're just a one height, one level dam, one drop is going to get stuck behind it. And then other drops would continue to flow over that and continue on to the next dam. This one is 2 levels, so it can hold 2 water droplets behind it should they make that far. And here's another level 2, and eventually it just can kind of continue and come off the board. There's what I ended up with, a level 3 dam here, and that's the maximum. And so you've got these dams that are catching water as it's coming down each round, and even while you're playing a round, there's 5 rounds to this game. And then you also have these little conduits that are attached to dams, and you can run the water out of those conduits and then follow the line down to your powerhouse, where that's how you're gonna produce energy. And that's really the core of the game, is being able to run water and through your powerhouses to create energy, which you're gonna end up throwing what you score in energy on this track. And as you go up, this is going to determine at the end of the round, your scoring. How far you are ahead is going to determine if you're going to get some bonus points each round, and it also determines your income each round. So that is, in a nutshell, what you're really trying to accomplish out here is maximizing running water to create power. And then that shows up here. And everybody has their own boards, and so here was my board playing green, and a little bit, a lot like, I don't know, Gaia Project or Scythe, or, a lot of these games where you pull off things and it'll open up other income streams and other little bonuses as you build things kind of left to right. And you've got your dams here that you always got to start with to catch water. And then you've got your elevations, which you can add to the level of your dam so you can hold more water in your dam. Here's your conduits, which are what you run the water through these conduits to reach your powerhouses, and your powerhouses are what actually create the energy. So you got these little systems of dams connected to conduits, connected to powerhouses that create your energy. And over here, it just tells you, what the cost. There's a couple resources here. There is there's a few resources, but to build anything, you need these excavators or these mixers. And what's cool is that you don't actually, you'll need a certain amount to build these things in certain areas, because up here, again, in the board, you'll notice there's actually there's these green and kind of a brown and kind of a mountain area, mountain and hills and grasslands or something. I don't know. It costs different amount of money or different amount of resources to build in certain areas. More expensive up in the mountains versus down here. But when you build, you actually put your stuff in these little this construction wheel, which is pretty cool, because instead of just burning your resources, you'll actually you build something, and you kind of slide in your little whatever you're building, an elevation, and then in here you'd put what it takes to build that, and then you spin it around, and then as things make it around, they become available again. Now I'm able to build dams again, and I get my excavators back. This represents 3 excavators. Or no, that's a 5. That represents 5 excavators. This is 3, and those are 1s. And so you get your things back. So there's kind of a little game of trying to just rotate this wheel to get your stuff back, so you can keep building. You don't actually lose your resources. It's just kind of out of commission for a little bit. I think that's a pretty cool take on on building things, and instead of burning resources, you kind of get them back like that. And all the while, you've got these contracts that you're going to be picking up, because as you produce energy, you're going to want to be completing contracts, really, about every time if you can, because when you complete a contract, it gives you little bonuses. So it's a worker placement game at its heart, and you're going to have your little guys. Everybody's going to get 12 of these little workers, these engineers, that you're going to be able to either put on your board to build stuff, or there's sort of this public board out here that is going to allow you to take the production, produce energy, or add more water to the headstreams and have stuff go down and trickle into your dams. You can just go to the bank and get money. You can go here, and this is how you can really rotate that wheel that I was just showing you, and get your resources back. You can use this to kind of spin it. The machinery shop, this is where you can get more excavators and mixers. At the contract office, this is where you'll pick up contracts so that as you're producing energy, depending on how much energy you produce, you're going to complete contracts and get bonus victory points or money or more resources. So it's all, tidily connected in a very, very well done, I think. And up here, you've got what is it? It's called the patent office. And this is where you can also get things that help you build a little more efficiently. When you build stuff, you're going to get little bonuses for it, rather than everybody gets these generic ones that start with, they're just the picture of what you're building, but then you can go over to the patent office and pick up things that help you construct a little more efficiently. So, and then here's where all the solo stuff happens. So you've got this rather thick bunch of very heavy tiles, and on the front side is what's going to determine what the automa is going to do, and you kind of go from top to bottom and left to right and until it can do an action. And then you'll use, and as you flip these over each turn on the backside, you'll use the backside to determine tiebreakers. So like if it's going to build a dam, then you look here and you're going to work your way down, and it's going to build a dam next to its strongest conduit, and then your strongest conduit. Then if it's still got options left, it's going to build, linked to its powerhouse, etc. So and you work your way down depending on what it's building or where it's adding water, and it has a pretty cool little tiebreaker system there that you use each turn. So that is how the automa is all run by this, and it's all with this, all has the instructions laid out in its own separate rule book. And you can play multiple, against multiple automas. So up to 3, I think, because of course it's a 4-player game. That would be a doozy. But anyway, let's get on to what I thought about playing this game solo. So Barrage ultimately fell short for me from a solo perspective. And again, this is all from a solo perspective. I can see the appeal. I feel like this is my kind of game, but multiplayer. And it seems like you need the multi in the multiplayer. You really need 3 or 4 players in this game to really tighten up that board, because there is a lack of scaling there. When you play with 3 or 2 players, it has you knock off some areas in the worker placement part, but it doesn't do anything when it comes to the board itself. It's still huge for 2 players and extremely tight. I mean, I can imagine for 4 players. I played the first few times, I played with just 1 automa. And then I played the next 2 or 3 games with 2 automa. So 3-player game. And it felt like more like the game maybe it was supposed to be, if I'm explaining that right. And then I put it away. I was actually so frustrated with it, I put it away. Then I came back to it and played it one more time with just 1 automa, which I feel like the system that was developed works better with 1 automa, but it's just, it's not the essence of the game the way that I feel it's supposed to be experienced. But all in all, the theme, I loved. I just like it. The idea of, I mean, I guess it's nothing special, hydroelectricity, but I just love the way it's done, how you can jockey around the board and throw up a dam here, and you're going to attach it to a conduit, run it over to your powerhouse, find a way to, siphon water from area to area. You can see kind of where the water is going to be falling. You can add to it if you need, and position yourself in such a way to maximize the production. It's my kind of thing. I like that sort of game, and it's got a cool look to it that feels very thematic. And the mechanics I enjoyed. The mechanics were, I thought, very cleverly put together in a meaningful way, and I really enjoyed the mechanic of not using resources and just they're gone. You've got these excavators and you got these mixers, but it was sort of like they're out of, you can't use them for a while as they build this dam, and this is kind of represented by that circly gizmo. and then you get it all back. But you can pick up some more excavators. It's expensive to get these things unless you can use your contracts to get them. But it was just an interesting take on a very normal mechanic of just spending, getting resources, spending resources, getting resources. You could affect the cycle of that production wheel to get your stuff back faster or not. And I thought that was very clever and probably my favorite mechanic of the game. The variability was there because you could, you started with a different neutral dams everywhere. You started with a different bit of water, and then the tiles would dictate in different lanes where that water would come down. That would be different every game. The goals from round to round were different each game. The end goal was different each game. Who you can play gave you a little extra powers, and then the main board itself had its own little incomes and stuff. And then of course you had your executive or whatever it was called that would add, mix in. So it was just extremely variable, and it really would set up a different flavor of game each time. So I thought it was spot on where that was concerned. The length of play, I think for its heaviness for this kind of game was about right. You could play hour and a half. You could play a game. Mainly when I was doing 2 Automa, that took longer because it was just more to try to process there, and I'll get more to that here in a second. But the length of play felt right for this weight. And then we get to the rule book. Now the rule book, there was I thought the rules were fairly well laid out from the multiplayer standpoint. Then it had an entire its own separate rule book for the Automa, which led me to believe that it was going to be very well done. Well, and I don't want to say that it wasn't well done. It's just I feel like it fell short in a number of areas. The first area was just I think there was a bit of a language barrier for one. I think there was stuff lost in the translation. Things just didn't quite make sense. I found myself going and checking out gaming rules. Paul Grogan, he seemed to be struggling with the solo a little bit too. One of the best tutorials was Netrania Gaming Club. He does such a wonderful job, and he teaches the multiplayer game and then a separate video to teach the solo game. Excellent. I would strongly recommend checking those videos out. But in the solo rules, the Automa, it seemed like, all Automas, whenever you're playing solo, you got to have, especially the heavier game, you got to have some tiebreaker systems. And it looked like it was very well done. They put a tremendous amount of effort into it. And when you play with one Automa, it seemed to work out. But once I was playing with 2, and I really wanted to play with 3, but there was no way I was going to do 3 after my experience with 2. Once you got to 2, there was a couple things that just like revealed themselves, some shortcomings. One of the, it was a couple. The 2 big ones that I remember are the Automa had this system of cycling through the contracts. Well, it would cycle when you're playing with 2 Automa. I can't imagine with 3, it would cycle through all those contracts. One game, it was like by the end of the 4th round. There's still, it was 4th round. And when it was 5, it must have been the end of the 3rd round. I don't know. In the 4th round, I remember there was no contracts. And then in the 5th round as well. Well, that is a stipulation for the Automa to create production is, can it complete a contract? And there was no contracts. So, because it had already just blown through them. And so I looked on Board Game Geek and I found, some remedies to that, but there was just like for a complete Automa rule book and all of this effort put in these tiebreakers, like how was that not addressed? And it just left you, it kind of left you because it was just, what did they not produce? That would take away from the whole spirit of like the game and its ability to score points. And it seemed like a weird thing to omit or to not have an answer for. Another one too, with all the tiebreakers, was it was so many times when the Automa is supposed to produce and it's supposed to use, it wants to use a system that'll produce the most energy. Well, there was many times where there was a couple that would produce the most energy and there was no tiebreaker. And that was even just playing against one Automa, but it really showed itself with 2 Automas. And you were just left. It had everything for, like, if it was built a base or a dam, it had a list of tiebreakers. If it built a powerhouse, a list of tiebreakers. If it had, a conduit, list of tiebreakers. Even dropping water it had a list of tiebreakers, but nothing for like for production. It seemed like an odd thing to just not be there, and so then you're left again with kind of like, well, what was it going to take from the neutral dam first? I mean, that would make sense, but then there would be situational things where it's like, it should, maybe it would, but then that's going to zip that water over into my dam. So maybe it would use its dam, even though I can't use the water in its dam. There was some things there that really would have been helpful to have an answer for. And I found that a little odd too, even the tiebreakers. Some of them they really didn't make sense. Whenever you build something for the Automa, it's always supposed to try and complete a production system. But if it can't, it seemed like a lot of times its structures would go in like no man's land. I mean, and it was just, and there was almost no rhyme or reason to it. And it just left the Automa spread, especially when you're just playing with the one, it was kind of all over the place. And it was easy to dodge and maximize your own thing. And again, I just feel like the board needed to be tighter for a two-player experience. So maybe adding some more, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers for that. That's what I look for, a good solo system implementation to handle that. And it wasn't there. The third time I was playing it with two Automas, I was done with the game before the game was over. I was just like, this is weird. I mean, I think it was like one Automa had 100 something. I scored like around 65 or 70, and the other Automa didn't even hit 20. And it comes with difficulties. It has this beautiful system of difficulty levels at the back. I didn't even touch them because it's like, well, how do you modify that when you get one that scores over 100 and one that doesn't even hit 20 scored very normally? And I like that. And so it wasn't, a beat your own high score. It was you're up against these opponents, and at the end, do you win or not? And I like that. And the overall, I guess, enjoyability of the game was just kind of obliterated for me by the lacking in the solo variant and the way it was implemented into this otherwise beautiful system that I really wanted to like. Now, the component quality, I guess, was a big thing for people, and I got the version that had the little wooden water droplets. So I don't know if the components were a little bit better. I don't know. I didn't have a big issue. Yeah, the main board felt a little weird and flimsy, but it looked, everything looked nice, and the production building wheel things were not like connected, and so like occasionally you'd be trying to turn that thing and it would pop out of its little spot and you'd kind of zing it, and that was not fun. Surprisingly, it only happened like once. But I was like, why are these things like connected, like fastened in there, like so many other games will do? And I found it odd, just the where the energy went to, like in creating these very cool wooden pieces that were all unique. Like the powerhouses were different for each of the four different, boards, and that was cool. But and then the tiles themselves for the solo was very thick, like normally like player aid, super player aid thick kind of tiles to run that normal, I don't know, I guess you would normally see as a deck of cards, really. And on, you flip it over, you use the back side for the tiebreaker, you use the front side to determine what the Automa does. But it was these huge tiles, and I found it kind of weird and clunky. And it seems like the effort there, I would have been happy with cards, and wooden pieces, if that had shifted over to make a little bit thicker board and, add some connectors. It was just, the quality was over the top in some areas, and then the component quality was lacking in others, and was just, that felt like it needed to be balanced out a little bit. I don't know a lot about this design team, Cranio Creations or Cranio Games or whatever the name. I think this is my first experience with them. I don't know, but I would say that I'm interested to see what they come up with next. I feel like there was a ton of effort put into this solo variant, and I appreciate that. And but nowadays, you're up against some titans of solo variants. People like David Turchi or Ricky Royal. The bar has been raised, and so where something like this really would have, like 10 years ago, would have been like, this is amazing. Now it feels very lacking, just because there's a new bar, there's a new level, but I'm very encouraged. I would encourage whoever, the team to keep it up. I think you only get better at this sort of thing. And so I'm very interested to see what they come up with next. So that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns or any comments down below. As always, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, I'm Boardgamerants, and I'm out. How this checks out sound-wise, little this action. Loosen up, huh? Maybe I should get some more hair before I get started.